The chapter 23, the CPI and the cost of living. 23.1, the consumer price index. In this chapter, we study reading the CPI numbers, constructing the CPI market basket, the monthly price survey, calculating the CPI, measuring inflation and deflation. The consumer price index or CPI is a measure of the average of the prices paid by urban consumers for a fixed market basket of consumption goods and services. The Bureau of Labor Statistics (BLS) calculates the CPI every month, and we can use these numbers to compare what the fixed market basket cost this month and what it cost in some previous month or other period to determine inflation or general increase in the price level. Reading the CPI numbers. The CPI is defined to equal 100 for a period called the reference base period. Currently, the reference base period is 1982 or 1984. That is, the CPI equals 100 on the average over the 36 months from January 1982 through December 1984. In May 2013, the CPI was 232.9. This number tells us that the average of the prices paid by urban consumers for a fixed market basket of consumption goods and services was 132.9% higher in May 2013 than it was on the average during 1982-1984. In April 2013, the CPI was 232.5. Comparing the CPI in May 2013 with the CPI in April 2013 tells us that the average of the prices by urban consumers for a fixed market basket of consumption goods and services increased by 0.4 percentage points in May 2013. Constructing the CPI. Constructing the CPI is a huge operation that costs millions of dollars and involves 3 stages: selecting the CPI market basket, conducting the monthly price survey, calculating the CPI. The CPI market basket. The first stage in constructing the CPI is to determine the market basket. This basket contains the goods and services represented in the index and the relative importance or weight attached to each of them. The idea is to make the weight of the items in the CPI basket the same as in the budget of an average urban household. For example, then the CPI places a weight of 2% on the price of bus, subway, and other transit system rides. Although the CPI is calculated every month, the CPI market basket isn't updated every month. The information used to determine the CPI market basket comes from a survey called the Consumer Expenditure Survey that discovers what people actually buy. This survey is an ongoing activity, and the CPI market basket in 2013 was based on a survey conducted during 2011. An astonishing 88,000 individuals and families contributed information. Some of them were interviewed every 3 months, and others kept detailed diaries for 2 weeks in which they listed absolutely everything they bought. Before 1999, the Consumer Expenditure Survey was conducted less frequently. The reference base period for the CPI has been fixed at 1982-1984 for more than 20 years and doesn't change when a new consumer expenditure survey is used to update the market basket. The figure shows the CPI market basket in May 2013. The basket contains around 80,000 goods and services arranged in the 8 large groups shown in the figure. This shopping cart is filled with the items that an average urban household buys. The most important item in the household's budget is housing, which accounts for 40.9% of total expenditure, transportation 17.2%, and food and beverages 15.2% take almost 3/4 of households' income. The BLS breaks down each of these categories into smaller ones. For example, education and communication breaks down into textbooks and supplies, tuition, telephone services, and personal computer services. The monthly price survey. Each month, BLS employees check the price of the 80,000 goods and services in the CPI market basket in 30 metropolitan areas. Because the CPI aims to measure price changes, it is important that the prices recorded each month refer to exactly the same items. For example, Suppose the price of box of jelly beans has increased, but a box now contains more beans. Has the price of a jelly bean increased? The BLS employee must record the details of the changes in quality, size, weight, or packaging so that price changes can be isolated from other changes. Calculating the CPI. The CPI calculations has three steps. Find the cost of the CPI market basket at base period prices. Find the cost of the CPI market basket at current period prices. Calculate the CPI for the base period and the current period. In the following example, CPI market basket contains only two goods and services, oranges and haircuts. We'll construct an annual CPI rather than monthly CPI with the reference base period 2010 and the current period 2014. Part A contains the data for the base period 2010. The total expenditure in the base period on the CPI market basket is $50. Part B contains the price data for the current period 2014. The total expenditure on the fixed CPI market basket at current period prices is $70. Part C uses the numbers just calculated to find the CPI for 2010 and 2014. The formula for the CPI is CPI equals cost of CPI basket at current period prices over cost of CPI basket at base period prices times 100. The cost of the CPI market basket was $50 in 2010, $70 in 2014. CPI in 2010 equals $50 over $50 times 100 equals 100. CPI in 2014 equals $70 over $50 times 100 equals 140. Measuring inflation and deflation. A major purpose of the CPI is to measure changes in the cost of living and in the value of money. To measure these changes, we calculate the inflation rate, which is the percent change in the price level from one year to the next. To calculate the inflation rate, we use the formula inflation rate equals CPI in current year minus CPI in previous year over CPI in previous year times 100. Suppose that the current year is 2014 and the CPI for 2014 is 140, and suppose that in the previous year 2013 the CPI was 120, then in 2014 inflation rate is 140 minus 120 over 120 times 100, which is 16.7%. If the inflation rate is negative, the price level is falling and we have deflation. The United States has rarely experienced deflation, but 2009 was one of those rare years. You can check the latest data by visiting the BLS website. In July 2009, the CPI was 215.4 and in July 2008 it was 220.0. So during the year to July 2009, the inflation rate was 215.4 minus 220 over 220 times 100, which is negative 2.1%. Figure shows the inflation rate in the United States between 1973 and 2013. The change in the price level in Part A and the inflation rate in Part B are related. When the price level rises rapidly, the inflation rate is high. When the price level rises slowly, the inflation rate is low. And when the price level is falling, the inflation rate is negative. The price level in Part A was rising rapidly during 1970s and the 1980s, and the inflation rate in Part B was high. The price level was rising slowly during the 1990s and 2000s, and the inflation rate was low. In 2009, the price level fell and the inflation rate was negative.